All right. Well, thanks for those who contributed to the questions there. If you're just now joining, I am sharing my screen. I have a couple of prompts. If you could let us know, what city you're dialing in from, if you or anybody that you know was affected by the CD global outage, and then maybe most importantly, if you have any questions or specific things you were hoping to learn during the webinar, please let us know that as well. And we'll go ahead and kick things off here. Oh, it says chat's disabled. Let's see. So maybe just use the Q&A. Looks like successful. Some people are having trouble with the chat. Alvin said he'd like to hear how attackers got access to the CDK cable's backups and recovery posture prior to the check and what they've changed after. That's a great question and something I'd like to know as well. So we'll get to that one here in just a second. Yeah. So I kind of had this set up into three folds. We're going to talk about generally what had happened just to kick things off, and then we'll break it down into a economic, financial, and the IT impacts that were experienced, and kind of what we can learn from that scenario. I will say that this one is still pretty fresh, so some specific details about how the attackers got in, who the attackers were, still being confirmed. But I'm sure all that'll come out as the dust is settled. But just generally, if you aren't aware of the attack yet, it's affecting 15,000 dealerships. I kind of found out about this because I'm, and always keep my ear to the ground about cybersecurity, but many individuals that I know that aren't involved in IT are aware of it as well, because they either, work at a dealership, nobody knows somebody that does, or they were trying to buy a car over the past 30 days or so. So huge impact from June 19. Still a little bit of fallout to clean up from there. So far that I've been able to tell from my research is that it was actually multiple different cyber attacks. So to answer Alvin's question, we'll get some more details on what those were, but it seemed like a kind of multi-threaded attempt to get in here. It's believed to generally by a group based in Eastern Europe, although I didn't, discover the ransomware attackers' names yet, although a lot of times they're, self-promoting themselves. So we'll probably find that out shortly. And also what I was reading about this attack as well was it's kind of the cyber criminals are always learning and trying to improve, as same as the good guys as we're doing. And one thing that we're noticing from this is that it was kind of an intentional attempt to cripple an entire industry, because what the bad guys are finding out is that if they can hurt one business, they can ask for this amount of money, but if they can shut down an entire organization, then it gives them, or an industry, then it gives them leverage to ask for a much higher volume. And so we've witnessed this recently with the healthcare attacks, and we've noticed that there's been widespread attacks afterwards, and I believe that this is kind of a duplicate follow-up. CDK Global, if you weren't aware of them prior, provides managed service and software as a service for a lot of dealerships. And so they're acting as their IT and hosting applications for them. So when they went down, it was almost all dealerships were affected, and it left the individual dealerships without much recourse or action they could do on their own. From what I can tell, the cyber group had demanded an extortion fee in the tens of millions of dollars. But as you guys are probably aware, now the ransom is a negotiation process, and so it used to just be a message on our screen. Now you kind of have a discourse with the person and negotiate it out if you're going to pay the ransom. And if you don't, then the bad guys will kind of go on the dark web and slander your name for not being professional and entering into those ransomware negotiations, which is as crazy as it sounds, I think. And then just to wrap this up on what happened, they were aiming to have this cleaned up by June 30th. Obviously, we're past that date. The restoration continues, but they have a lot of their core applications back in their process of getting the final remaining functionality back up and running. Okay, just moving on to I see a question about SOC 2. I'll just have maybe one of our technical team answer that question once we get to the IT impact, but really good question. Personal impact, as you guys might have already been aware, as I was saying, I've heard of many individuals who've been impacted by this, either because they were trying to purchase a car or because they own or work for a dealership. So while the systems are down, a lot of people haven't been able to do their jobs, right, or do their work. A lot of the information that the dealers need to access is hosted in CDK Global's environment. So there was really, for some pieces of information, there was nothing that could be done. They were completely on standby. And for some others, it meant that they moved to like a more manual process to carry on with the process with their sales. But for a lot of people, it was just we don't have the information that we need to continue moving forward, or we don't have the application that is paramount to being able to do our job. Some people were just told, "Hey, stay home," and they said, "Well, we can do that, but I've got a mortgage and a life and a family, so am I going to continue to get paid?" So there's been a lot of, I think the individual has got a ton of impact here. Maybe not as severe, but more annoying as just if you were in the process of purchasing a car, that might have been on hold. I know that a lot of dealerships are always running promotions, as I'm sure you've seen. And a lot of people that were hoping to take advantage of those promotions were unable to because the systems were down. So I think the dealerships are trying to work to kind of honor or grandfather some of those discounts that they were offering that people weren't able to take advantage of because systems were down. Other than people not being able to do their job and maybe not getting paid because they couldn't do their job, the sales that were happening were kind of happening on paper, and people are unable to track their commissions. And just from the blogs I've read, a lot of individuals concerned about their pay this month, which is, I always feel for that for people out there working hard. All right, now it gets pretty dense in here. I actually had to make this 2 different slides, but to go back to the previous note, I believe that the intention with cyber criminals now is getting bigger and grander and more thoughtful, and I think that this shutting down an industry was intentional because the bigger the impact, the more leverage they think they have. For asking for higher ransom. So just like we talked about, 15,000 dealerships were down, millions in losses. Anderson Economic Group said that it could be about 944 million in direct losses due to the dealerships being down for just the 3 weeks when I started preparing this webinar. So we've got another week and a half since then. Last month, so June, there was 100, or in May, there was 120, June, there was $122 billion of transaction in car dealerships. And that counts for about 17% of retail sales in May. So it was just kind of eye-opening for me as I ran through this to learn how big of how big retail sales has an impact on the U.S. economy and what portion it accounts for our GDP. And then of that retail sales, what percentage of that is car sales. So right now we're kind of talking about the financial impact to the business. C dealership not able to process stuff for more than 10 days. The average dealership's losing 10%. But all of this is leading us to, and what does that mean for the overall economy? I feel for these businesses and individual dealerships, but will that impact other people? Again, average dealership lost close to 40% of their productivity per day. Now we start to look at how this could affect retail sales overall, making it dip by as much as 2.3%, which I didn't think that sounded that much. But people say that economists are saying that this outage is really going to take months, if not years, to correct from. And a 2.3% decline in sales is going to have, a long-term impact on the GDP for the quarter and for the year, and maybe moving forward. So this wasn't just, the dealerships that are impacted, or CD Global's reputation, or just people trying to buy cars, but actually the overall U.S. citizens could be impacted by the outage moving forward, which I think is a unique, where kind of like everybody could be impacted, right? Usually it's this healthcare was impacted. If you use them, maybe your personal information has been out there. This is kind of the first ransomware attack that I know of that could potentially affect kind of nearly everybody. So now we're focusing on the reason we're really here today, and the issues and impacts that we can help affect the most is on IT. As we might imagine, it was really difficult for dealers to do their normal processing, right? Which is track customer interactions, handling orders, handling sales, handling buying. All of the documents pretty much went to writing out by hand that they could. So some of their systems and data is solely hosted in CD Global. So for those, they were kind of sitting on their hands to return. But for stuff that they could take into their own, which would be like writing out the deed so that the owner has proof of ownership. Also, a concern that the dealerships had and other people's, that this really isn't secure. There's a reason why we don't normally write it on a piece of paper and leave it on our desk, but really we're forced to do it at the moment, or completely shut our business down. So I think that was just interesting to say that sometimes the cyber attack can cause other events that now put people's information at risk, right? Just by having somebody's social security number or bank details on someone's desk. So ton of that work being done by hand, which is obviously slow, super inefficient. People aren't able to communicate with people located at different sites. And then finally, once the systems get back up and running, they're going to have to get all this data and manually import it into their system so it all aligns. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen now so I can get into more of the questions here. Jeffrey, if you're on the line with us, got a couple of technical questions for you. One is, do you have any insight on how this attack might impact SOC 2? Does it lower the value of it, or do you have any insights on how this event and SOC 2 compliance might interact moving forward?
Yeah, good. Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So since this was a single attack on a single vendor, the SOC 2 Type 2 compliance should still be a piece of the security puzzle. So.
Nice. Okay. So it's something that you think that people should still put onus on, and there's still a lot of value there to end users to seeking that out?
Correct.
Okay. John, I hope that was helpful. Jeffrey, I know this is kind of still developing, but did you have any other details on kind of how these guys specifically got in, or is that still being figured out, I guess?
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't have that knowledge yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they are still triaging it, or maybe if they're, just haven't released a publication on it yet. But in our experience, like when we covered the MGM and Caesar's Palace usually a little bit after the event is resolved, then we really learn more. I will say that's one positive thing about that's happening with ransomware attacks is the good guys that are trying to stay protected are being more and more collaborative, and they're being more open about when they are hit, and that's just great because the bad guys are collaborating, working together. That allows us good guys to collaborate and work together as well and make others aware, so that we don't make the same mistakes or hit with the same attacks later on. Okay, we've still got about 10 minutes left. Oh, wait, here's a couple more questions coming through, I think. Sorry. My company's been hit with moved to the biggest applications to a vendor cloud. So we're basically at the mercy of their security. Is there anything that my company can do to protect themselves? Yeah, that's a great question, Terry. It's something that I've been thinking about as well. These dealerships are in the same position where they are fully reliant on, they're acting as their IT department, but actually they are providing the systems, and they're hosting their data as well. So, just from a quorum perspective, we're always thinking that having a really secure backup system is your safety net for when and if a cyber attack gets through. But for the individual dealerships, I I'll be interested to see what they decide moving forward. Do they move some of their infrastructure in-house, so that they can be responsible for their own security, and that they can have their own backup recovery and be responsible for their own data, so that if they have an issue that they're able to work on and resolve it themselves. For people that are completely reliant on people for SaaS applications, and they're hosting their data there. It's a good question, Terry. I'm not sure what the answer is there, or what people can do to protect themselves in that engagement. My initial thought is, does it make sense to move some of that back in house so we can protect our most mission critical applications, and at least put our destiny in our own hands to recover? But it is a really good question. Jeffrey, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think you got that.
Okay. Just a sec. I think we got a couple more we came through. All right. Francis says most auto dealerships have a limited infrastructure, maybe only like a couple of servers on site. What would you anticipate in general terms the cost of a solution? And so, Francis, do you mean the cost of what solution is for Quorum, or maybe just get me back on that? John had followed up and said that he recommends a business impact analysis at the very least. The security section on CD Global is a great read. Snapshots. Thanks, John. That is helpful. So if we are at least relying on other businesses, for SaaS applications or hosting our data, we can at least do a security audit against them to make sure they're, putting the right process and checks and balances to keep us safe. Francis, I didn't see your feedback on this one, so I'll assume it's for a Quorum solution. So it was kind of like, he works with dealerships. They have about 2 to 6 servers, maybe 2 to 3 terabytes of data. How much is a solution? It's a good question. It depends though on the configuration that obviously how many servers are protecting, but also the configuration that they'd like for Quorum. So maybe I'll answer with our default recommendation, which is with a local Quorum appliance replicating to Quorum's private cloud. So we recommend that because it helps us have 3 copies of data, 2 different locations, 2 different networks and physical sites. So a lot of the backup essentials for somebody with, let's call it 5 servers and 2 to 3 terabytes. We'd be putting a small appliance on site, licensing the 5 servers. So I would say they're probably looking at maybe like ballpark like $5,000 to $10,000 investment per year, outside of the hardware cost. But if you're interested in more specific numbers, we could meet up and review the client's environment, get their exact information, and then find out what the requirements are on the DR side. And then I could give you a specific proposal. So for Francis or anybody else who's saying, I'd like to learn more about pricing, just let me know. Or in general, for like, hey, we're not sure about pricing, but we'd like to see more about Quorum's ransomware and disaster recovery solution, of course, let me know. Jeffrey and I'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one meeting with you where we can talk about ransomware recovery specifically, or if you have any concerns about your current setup or would like a free DR evaluation, let us know. All right, Jeffrey, here I got a question for you, another one from John. It's asking, what security framework do you recommend or follow?
First and foremost, we generally follow the good overall security. So strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, having the malware intrusion scanners in place to monitor the environment.
Okay. Sean, if you have a follow-up to that, just let us know. Cool. In just a few more minutes, we'll hang on here. In case anybody thinks of any last questions, you're welcome, Francis, no problem. John, I hope that was helpful. If it's not, let us know. Anybody else on the line, if you'd like some more details, if we didn't get to a question that you had or you think of something afterwards, let us know. Again, Quorum, we are a backup and recovery company. And I used to talk about fires and floods and power outages and network outages and software updates and hardware issues and all of the different things that can bring a system down. But today, myself and our team, when people reach out to us, the only type of disaster they're concerned about is ransomware. And I guess to get to the punchline, to date, Quorum has helped 100% of our customers successfully recover from ransomware. I don't know that there's another backup solution out there that's able to say that. And the reason that we're able to do that is because security was at top of mind for us and our developers since creation. And a lot of other backup companies today, I think, are trying to figure out how to make their system secure or how to make it really, really capable for ransomware recovery, when really that was our intention from the beginning. Almost all of our early adapters were like financial, healthcare, legal, people that have legal compliances to make sure their data is protected. So we've been doing this for, a really long time. It's a layered approach. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do to make sure the backup data is secure and what we're going to do to make sure that you have that fail safe for kind of if or when a ransomware event hits you, please let us know. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody who joined us today. We'll be following up with you just to see if you had any feedback in the webinar or any more questions. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and the rest of your week, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks, everybody. Take care.